Hello, welcome back to Planet 40k. Today we're going to be doing one of our Know Your Foe videos. This time we're going to be looking at the Maleceptor from the Tyranid Codex. So we're going to be looking at all the things it can do, and possibly some of the ways that we can try to defeat this model. Okay, so let's get into it. So it's one of the monsters in the Tyranid Codex, one of the big bad models. Lots of psychic shenanigans, throws out lots of mortal wounds, and quite resilient at the same time. And it's got a toughness value of 8, and it's also got 15 wounds on a 3+ armor save, along with its 4+ invulnerable save on top of that, and there's a psychic ability called Catalyst which will give it a 5+ feel no pain save if they wanted to use that too. So a very tough nut to crack, and hopefully we're going to try crack it in this video. So let's first check out some of the datasheet abilities that this thing actually has. First of all, any friendly models that are within 6 inches of this Maleceptor, when they're targeted at range, it's a -1 to our strength when we're targeting those units. That's a pretty big deal. Ghost Flayers go down to strength 3, Ghost Reapers to strength 4, and so on. And this thing is quite a big model, so it can have a lot of units within 6 inches of it. Now thankfully they will need to pass a psychic test in order to actually do that. It is Warp Charge 6, and there are lots of other psychic abilities it may do instead of using that. So you won't always see that one, but the one that you probably will see quite often is the following. There's an ability called Psychic Overload. So each time this model successfully manifests any psychic power or completes a psychic action, if the test was passed on a 7 or more, then the closest eligible unit within 12 inches is going to suffer some mortal wounds. So it depends on what wounds are left on this actual model. If it's got 8 or more wounds, then it's going to be throwing out 3 mortal wounds. If it's got between 5 and 7, it's going to be 2, and 4 or less, it will be 1. So this isn't actually a psychic power, this is on top of the psychic power. So just imagine it could be doing Smite. It can then be doing this one. There's a few other ones it can do as well, such as Psychic Scream. But yeah, this thing can throw out a ton of mortal wounds. And in fact, it doesn't even need to know some of the psychic abilities in order to actually use them, because they've got a stratagem which is called Synaptic Channeling. So if there's another psychic model on the table, they can effectively borrow that psychic power for that psychic phase and be using it. They've also got some other abilities, which is their Synaptic Imperative abilities. Very similar to our command protocols in a sense. They're going to be choosing a certain ability each battle round. And if they've got the Maleceptor on the table, they can choose the following. They can do an action while still performing range attacks. They can advance or fall back and then still do an action. And they can also do a psychic action, and it's not going to prevent them from doing actual psychic powers. So they can do both of those there as well. That's pretty good. But one to watch out for, if they've got a Neurothrope on the tabletop and that model uses their Synaptic Imperative, there's lots of ways to buff the psychic tests of all models in their list. A +1 to their psychic test, for example, and again a 5+ feel no pain save. So there's going to be lots of ways to get that Catalyst save or throwing out mortal wounds, the Smite attacks. There's going to be lots of ways, and we're going to really struggle to actually defend ourselves against it. Now unfortunately it does get even worse than that. Then they can take the Hardened Bodies. It's like Cryptic Arcana, it's one of those little upgrades that are within the table, and Hardened Bodies gives them a +1 to their armor save against damage 1 weapons, so even more survivability. And don't forget with Leviathan, they've got that transhuman physiology on pretty much all their list. The bigger stuff have a 4+ roll, the smaller stuff you need to get a 3+ roll, but yeah, even more resiliency. So let's get onto the weapons before we get onto actually how we're going to defeat this thing, because we can't ignore the weapons because they're also pretty decent. Now they've only got melee weapons, and it's the massive Scythian Talons. They come in 2 different profiles. It's either strength 7, -3 AP and 2 damage, but they're going to have 6 attacks instead of 3, or the bigger profile, which is strength 10, -4 AP and 2d3 damage. So an average of 4 damage there, but that's with only 3 attacks. So it's not too bad. They don't have the most attacks, and they've got no range attacks either. But of course all those mortal wounds in the psychic phase kind of make up for that. Now they do have some tricks up their sleeve on top of that with the stratagems. First one is the Trampling Charge. Once it gets into engagement range with our models in the charge phase, they roll a dice. On a roll of a 2, 3 or 4, our unit's going to suffer 3 mortal wounds. And on a 5+, it's D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. So pretty nasty there. Then on top of that, there's the Adaptive Physiologies, where they can give themselves the Fight First ability, or they can be dealing even more mortal wounds. There's a common theme here. So basically what I'm trying to say is when you're coming up against a Maleceptor, it's got to be target number 1. So let's talk about how we can actually deal with the Maleceptor. First of all, you instantly need to be looking at the Zerican Dynasty. Against any psychic faction, that 5+ feel no pain save against mortal wounds is going to be really crucial to keep our guys up and running. Not only that, we've also got the Empiric Damping stratagem for 1 command point, which allows us to deny the witch as if we were a Psyker. Also, any units that can take a Gloom Prism, such as the Canoptic Spiders, or some of those Forge World models that come in the Gloom Prisms, the Tombstalker and the Tomb Sentinel, make full use of those if you can, because they've also got a Deny the Witch. Now the Silent King has his own Deny the Witch, of course, with his own ability, so having all of those in a combination could be a decent way going forward. Now if you're looking at the range side of things, I've personally taken out a Maleceptor with 2 lots of 3 Locus Heavy Destroyers in a single turn. It was against the Leviathan High Fleet, need to break through a 4+ invulnerable save, as well as the Feel No Pain save on top of that. But it is doable, and maybe even a Doom Scythe could be helpful here with that D3 plus 3 damage for anything that goes through. Now if you want to go in mass, 20 Necron Warriors of course. It needs to be the Ghost Reaper so that you're at least wounded on a 5 as opposed to a 6. Now 40 shots with Mire will be done, 33 hits, causing on average 11 wounds. Now with the 4+ invulnerable save, that's a combined total of around 5 to 6 damage. It doesn't quite bracket him unfortunately, so it is going to take more than that. Now standard Locust Destroyers are another option for me. A full unit of 6, again with that Mire will be done ability, rerolling the 1s on top of that, will probably do around 6 damage on average. So it is a tough nut to crack, right? Now this is where we get into the melee side of things, which I think is the better option here. The reliable Nightbringer is the first place to look at. He's on average going to take off around 12 wounds off the Maleceptor in just the fight phase alone, ignoring invuln saves, ignoring Feel No Pain saves, and hopefully you could peel some wounds off in the movement phase with the Catan Powers on top of that as well. Now that should severely cripple the Maleceptor. However, bringing a Nightbringer to a psychic party is always a bad idea. He's usually getting killed in turn 1 because there's that many phases where he takes damage, and of course he is capped at 3 damage per phase, but the psychic phase, the shooting phase, the fight phase, there's lots of ways he can take damage and probably won't last until your next turn. So even though he does do a lot of damage, I kind of don't recommend it for this game. Option number 2 in melee, we need some power hitters, so I'm thinking Scorpic Destroyers in a unit of 6 of them. You can get the +1 to strength bonus from the Disruption Field stratagem, so make those Reap Blades strength 8. Then you'll be looking at an average of around 8 damage in total from the unit. Now there are ways of increasing this figure even further. For example, if you're in the Novuk Dynasty, you've got the Bloodrite stratagem to give all the models in that unit an extra attack. There's also the Plasma Sight to give them all an extra attack as well as an extra bit of strength. There's then the Command Protocol of Hungry Void for the extra strength. So if you combine all that together, now even your Hyperphase Threshers are strength 8. And all this together should in fact get rid of a Maleceptor, but that's of course quite a lot to put together. There's a lot of CP involved and you've got to get those Scorpic Destroyers in the actual fight. Now ultimately the likelihood is you're not going to take it down in a single turn. It's kind of too tough for that, but if you can aim to take it down by turn 2, possibly even turn 3 out of push. The problem is it's only 220 points for that model, and it's pretty much distracting our entire army, at least all the major players within our army anyway. I'd always ensure the Canoptic Scarabs are the closest eligible model for smite attacks, and also for that psychic ability that throws out mortal wounds on top of that. Make sure the Scarabs are taking that, because they're only 15 points a base. You'd rather have those Scarabs take that damage than say the Locus Heavy Destroyers. Also, I wouldn't engage with the Scarabs, I wouldn't try to tie it down, because the Scarabs are just going to get eaten up within that combat and you're just throwing them away. If the Maleceptor wants to fight, make them do it in their own turn. But once they do get into a fight, if you think about it, the actual attacks that the Maleceptor has, he's either got 6 damage 2 weapons, which at best is going to kill 3 Canoptic Scarab bases, or 3 damage 2d3 attacks. Again, that's only going to take off 3 Canoptic Scarab bases if rolled perfectly. So a unit of 9 Canoptic Scarabs can actually suffocate them. The only problem then is you've got to be mindful of other Tyranid range attacks that have got the blast keyword, because your Scarabs are not going to like that. But for me, lots of Canoptic Scarabs I think are the way to go here. You just need to suffocate it, slow it down, let all the Canoptic Scarabs eat the damage. It's not ideal, but as long as they are the closest eligible unit and they're taking all the damage, then it's not that big of a deal really. You're not losing models from other key areas of the game. You're not losing your big items, you're not losing your Scorpic Destroyers, your Locust Destroyers, or anything else that you value. Maybe even the Silent King perhaps. You don't want to be losing that guy to a 220 point Maleceptor. So guys, I hope this video has been informative in helping us defeat other foes within the 40k game. Let me know down in the comments below what kind of foe you want me to do a video on next. Other than that guys, all I have to say is thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.